Greetings from New Zealand. 3 weeks ago I wanted an aquarium and purchased a AquaNano. This was the larger of the two models put out by Aqua One. And then a couple of weeks after that, wanting a second tank, I selected a Flex put out by Fluval. Once again, it was the larger of the two of these models available. So I thought I'd put together a bit of a review on what I thought about them, given that they're both similar capacity, similar price, and incorporate the same type of filtration system. Now, I live in a small town in New Zealand, so it wasn't possible for me to just pop out and have a look at these. I had to purchase online, sight unseen. The AquaNano 40 I obtained from a Auckland shop called Living Reef, and they put together an outer carton into which the manufacturer's carton was placed, and the two were separated by polystyrene blocks. The outside had warning labels, glass and fragile, and I was impressed when it arrived in excellent condition. I purchased the Flex from a pet chain store called Animates, and they also shipped from Auckland. Around the exterior of the manufacturer's carton they put a layer of bubble wrap. Then on the outside they wrapped it in black polythene. Not too sure why they would do that, because to my mind that would be more slippery to hold than cardboard. They didn't put any warning labels on the outside. Now, when it arrived, it was impossible to see if there was any damage, but after opening it I did find on one corner of the carton there was a knock, but not too bad, but on the other corner there was quite a substantial blow. Fearing the worst, I opened it up completely, and fortunately the glass was in one piece and did withstand a water pressure test. The polystyrene packaging had completely split in one corner and ruptured along the sides. The pressure had carried over to the other side of the polystyrene as there were stress marks visible. So it was reassuring to see that the manufacturer's packaging did protect the contents. Now, the AquaNano 40 is advertised as 55 litres and the Fluval Flex at 57 litres. So that's the AquaNano 14.5 gallons US and the Fluval Flex 15 gallons US. As far as dimensions, the AquaNano is a cube with 40 centimetre sides, and the Flex is slightly wider at 41 centimetres. The depth to the back of the tank is 39 centimetres, and from the bottom of the tank to the top of the lid 39 centimetres also. Both tanks retail in New Zealand at 200 New Zealand dollars. It should be noted that the Flex does not include a heater, so you'd need to add on about $30 for that, which would make it the more expensive of the two. Hey, I grew up with tanks that had steel frames and glass butted together with silicon joins, and it's really pleasing that at long last manufacturers are starting to design tanks that shows some innovation. The AquaNano has moulded edges on 3 of its sides, and the Flex has its characteristic bow in the front, which will be quite an attraction for some. The lid of the Flex has the Fluval name embossed into it. It's not quite in your face, but I'm not a big fan of over-branding. The lid itself seemed a little bit flimsy, but it's quite adequate. But the glass seemed really thin, and you'd need to take care if you're landscaping with rocks. But I'm quite sure it's fully fit for purpose, especially seeing it survive transportation here. A neat idea is the honeycomb grill to help hide the water line and what is above it. The lid does include an opening for feeding the fish, or perhaps for siphoning out water. It's a pity it didn't have a flip top lid, it would have made it a little bit nicer in appearance. Mind you, you'd have to be unlucky for a fish to jump out. The glass lid of the AquaNano has a finger grab, which can also double as a feeding port. The back part of the tank is exposed. You can see the top of the filter and also the cables. So it's really going to be personal preference as to what type of top or lid you prefer. To the top of the tank I applied some plastic film to hide the water line. There is no branding other than a removable sticker on the light. The glass thickness allows for it to be supported by 4 feet in the corners. In my case I left the polystyrene packing in place just so that dust would not gather underneath the tank. Fluval supply a non-slip mat to go under the tank, and underneath that I put a piece of white coloured wood just to raise the tank up somewhat because it is low compared to the Nano. The AquaNano light has an array of 42 LEDs which are a combination of white and RGB. In total it draws 10 watts. The Flex light system draws 9 watts and has 48 white LEDs and 6 RGB lights, and these are controllable with a remote, and this will be one of the main attractions for many people, as you can set the scene or mood as you wish. Now I had a remote like this plus a strip of LED lights about 7 years ago, so the novelty of that has worn out, and I would really just be looking at it for the basic ability to grow plants. And unfortunately I see that a number of users have found it necessary to add additional lighting or to swap out the lights that are there. In both cases the back of the tanks were partitioned off for filtration. I estimated that the Nano had about 18% of its capacity taken up with filtration and the Flex about 21%. They both worked on the same principle of having different chambers, and various types of media was supplied so you could be up and running without having to buy anything else. And in both cases there was ample room to add more media which would help buffer your tank. The AquaNano had a water inlet at the top right with another small opening at the bottom below the substrate so the water would equalise during water changes. I've modified mine by adding additional media such as noodles, repositioning sponges and adding crushed lava rock. The Fluval Flex has water inlet openings on the left hand side, both at the top and bottom. Goodness knows what they were thinking of when they designed a nano tank with openings so big that nano fish and shrimp could get through into the filtration system. I obtained some filter sponge so I can provide some protection. There is still ample room in the back for additional media, which I will be adding. Both tanks come with pumps that are rated at 500 litres per hour, that's 132 US gallons per hour. Unfortunately the output of the Flex pump cannot be controlled, and because of the high flow rate many users have had to replace the pump or drill holes in the outlet pipe to reduce the pressure. The pump hums a little like an old diaphragm air pump. As supplied, it wouldn't be suitable to keep a beater unless you got heavy planting to reduce that water flow. The AquaNano pump has a slider switch located at one end, which can be used to adjust the water flow to suit. There's also a Venturi plug-in unit to add bubbles to the airstream. This is currently the lowest setting. I've found that if you use a higher setting, the noise of the bubbles can be a little distracting. So in summary, I think the AquaNano is the better of the two. It's more cost effective and provides me with what I expect from a nano tank. Certainly choice of tank is a very personal thing, and many factors would come into it, including what might be available at the time. Both are well suited to their role and would give a lot of enjoyment. I'd have no hesitation in buying an AquaNano again, although I'd unlikely select another Fluval Flex. Thank you for taking the time to watch. I do hope that some of the matters raised would help in the selection of any tank.